Well, Tracy, happy Friday, and thanks so much for joining us for our creative discussions for our creative industries season and chatting with us about some collaboration and creativity. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, so we've just got kind of a couple questions for you in terms of your experience with Creative Mornings Santa Fe, and if you could tell us a little bit of a background around how Creative Mornings Santa Fe kind of came into being and what inspired you to kind of invigorate that for the city. And in doing that, we're going to kind of have a conversation around collaboration and creativity. And we'd just love to hear kind of like your insights and your experience in the New Mexico creative economy.
Yeah, great. Happy to share that information for sure. So for those who don't know, I'm Tracy Sprinkle. I'm a creative consultant, an event producer, and also the host of Creative Morning Santa Fe. I launched the chapter last year after moving to New Mexico and craving real connection with other creatives. And so, what Creative Mornings is a free monthly breakfast lecture series that celebrates the local creative community. And my mission is to make it the most welcoming room in Santa Fe for artists, makers, dreamers, doers. Like our motto is everyone is creative and everyone is welcome. So it's inclusive and it's open to everybody.
Awesome. So in kind of getting Creative Mornings started in Santa Fe and bringing that chapter to life, what was it like working in in Santa Fe's creative landscape? Was it a lot? Was there a lot of people kind of willing to jump on board and help bring it to life, or did you find yourself kind of in boats where people might have been working on similar projects and maybe not so willing to help, or how did you navigate some of that?
I got lucky for one thing, but I also understood the power of community and especially the power of Creative Mornings community. So, as a global organization, there are 200, almost 270 chapters in 69 countries around the world. I had been involved in a chapter in Texas, in Fort Worth, and in Dallas, and so I already knew kind of the power of what Creative Mornings could do. And when I decided to reinvigorate the Santa Fe chapter, which had been dormant for some time during the pandemic, I kind of already expected people to say yes because that's had been my experience before. And fortunately, I quickly got connected, even though I knew very few people here when I first started this kind of discovery process. I got connected quickly to people who were yes and people who could say, yes, I can help you with that, and let me introduce you to someone else. So we got a core group of people put together pretty quickly to help us, who had either been to the Creative Mornings iteration prior to the pandemic or just believed in the idea of this face-to-face community. I think timing also really helped, coming at the tail end of sort of a pandemic. People were really craving that in-person sort of face-to-face interaction, and as was I. I mean, that's the reason I decided to do it. And so I got really lucky in some ways that I got connected to the right people who also then knew other people and were willing to kind of, spread the gospel of Creative Mornings, as it were. And a lot of people said yes who had never been to Creative Mornings. They just kind of believed in the idea of it and really wanted that for themselves. And it's just gained momentum over time, over the last year, really.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I think in my kind of perspective of doing this work for the creative industries for New Mexico, I mean, Santa Fe is such a great example of collaboration and community and what it means when creatives have a space to thrive and build businesses and work with one another. And in a lot of the work that we've also done is we find folks who want to work on these really big projects or these awesome creative ideas, and then there might be other people in the environment who want to work on a similar project, but sometimes we put it on our own shoulders, like, I've got to figure this out for my organization, for my business, for my creative pursuit. And, reaching out to others becomes a little, either like not something that they're thinking about, or there's always kind of a little bit of fear in collaboration and sharing our ideas and being vulnerable with one another. But In my perspective and in the perspective of the division, Arlen and I trying to kind of bring some of this work forward is we think that there's a lot of opportunity when people are willing to try to lean into that vulnerability and ask for help. So I'm wondering if you have any advice for creatives who might want to collaborate but just don't know where to start.
Yeah, so I think some insight there. My background, I come from a big agency world in Texas, 16 years at a big agency. And in that space, I realized there was room for everybody. There used to be this idea of like, protecting what's mine or competition, and now just I think as a world economy, like there's just space for everything, and there's no reason that we all can't kind of work together. So I brought that mentality to this, and I think for the creative who has ideas and wants to start something. I mean, first I'd start there and say there is space for that, definitely. Um, I would say, put yourself out there, start going to events, start talking to people. I am not scared to talk to people, but that's a learned skill. I used to be really nervous about that, and I just learned to find something to connect on. So, for instance, if I go to someone's event, like there's going to be a common thread, and you can find that common thread and then open a dialogue with those people. And in that, you can learn like what they are doing well, what things they would recommend doing differently, allies, mentors, that sort of thing. So I think just sort of put yourself out there. Just start. You don't have to have a formal pitch. You don't have to have it all figured out. Like
Yeah.
just start, put yourself out there, and then I think if enough people sort of believe in what you believe in and see your enthusiasm around it, as we like to say in Creative Mornings, we believe in giving a damn, and I think that's so important. And so when you find people who also give a damn, then you kind of get this momentum to where you want to take your project.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I think kind of on that note of there's room for everyone, there's space for everybody. I mean, I completely agree. And I think that even in times of competition or, territorial practice is like when you have something that's authentic, integrous, and genuine for what you're doing, like you're not going to lose out. The people that are meant to be there, be part of the project, be part of the business, be part of what's happening, like that's always still going to pan out. And there's always going to be the people and things and obstacles that might counter that. But when we, rising tide lifts all boats.
That's right.
It's kind of, we
Yeah.
know it, but in practice, it seems so much harder, especially sometimes in, I guess I would say like in the States, but I think like New Mexico and Santa Fe especially are very poised to like having that innate understanding. Like, no, like we can do this together because together we go farther, we do more and we reach more folks. And
Mm,
on that note, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on how different creative businesses and organizations in New Mexico can continue to cultivate that ability to want to work together to grow as a collective, right? As a creative ecosystem, as a creative economy. What do you think about that? And how do you think that businesses could go about that? Because sometimes we get so focused on, I've got to build what I'm working on here. And when
mm.
you take that time to work with others, there might be an opportunity for us to all grow.
Yeah, I think a strong creative economy is going to start with relationships and not transactions. So I think when you shift your mindset to this is going to be something that I need to be transactional. I need it to make money for me, or I need it to generate something. I think that's where you kind of start to get in the weeds. So if you and shift that kind of thinking toward more relationships, I think that's the first place to start. Show up for each other, attend events, cheer each other on, repost, refer, collaborate, and be more of an ally than looking for that transactional component. And I think that starts with things like coffee, right? Like that's kind of what we do is
Mhm.
we facilitate coffee and breakfast, and we just talk about dreams and ideas without that real pressure of some kind of deliverable. Um, and I think, um, yeah, I think just reinforcing that idea that like creative growth really comes from collaboration versus competition. So when we see success as something that expands the pie rather than divides it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. Um, so this in this question, I don't know if or how you might think about this, but we're on Zoom right now, right? And
Okay.
technology and data and being in a digital environment is so prominent now, right? And sometimes
Yeah.
creatives, we can lag, or we're adopters, and we're along the entire spectrum, right? And I think that there's a role in technology fostering collaboration moving forward. And I'm wondering if there's anything that you might see about how technology, like social media and virtual events, can play in fostering our ability to collaborate with one another when it comes to creative economy work.
Yeah, I think this is an important conversation that's being had right now, especially. Um, and I just was talking with my friend Mike Davis yesterday about screens and how as an artist, we kind of have this desire, or at least I do, to balance this relationship with a screen. And as someone who's sat in front of a screen for a very long time, I'm feeling like I don't want to do that as much. But we also have to recognize that it's a tool, it's not going away. So how can we leverage that? I know for Creative Mornings, on the global organization, they're working with Adobe, and they're putting together what were called virtual field trips. So you could log on and sign up for a class on how to improve your resume, or how to be a better writer, or how to be schedule your day differently, manage your calendar. I mean, it's all kinds of things that we can learn that way. And then I think um, I think there are going to be ways to integrate it with like live streaming and things like that. But this is something that we as a team are definitely um, curious about. We don't have the answers though. I don't
Right.
know if that helps.
No, I think it's important to stay curious and at least be aware and dabble in. It doesn't mean that you have to do it, but at least being aware of what's going on in that environment and using it either to enhance what you're working on, or not. But at least staying aware of, because there's so many businesses in New Mexico, and in very true New Mexico fashion is like, we don't need a Facebook page, we don't need a website. It's all word of mouth, and that's fantastic that we build our relationships that way, because we are such a personable, like, it is the interpersonal relationships in this state that make things happen.
Sure.
But also a piece of that where if we don't adopt or we don't move into those places, we miss a huge piece of the market and our ability to stay competitive over time. But there's definitely a balance, because we don't all belong on screens, and we don't belong totally with all our time going into these digital space. We have this beautiful planet out
Yeah.
here to enjoy.
But I mean, if we think about how we all use our devices, right? Um, so for instance, one of the things that our chapter is really working on is what does our digital presence look like, right? While interestingly enough, the majority of our attendees come from email, we still have a really strong online social media presence, because that's often where people go to look if they hear about us on Creative Mornings, or they hear about us maybe on the radio or through Creative Industries Division email, something like that. They're going to go there. I mean, just like we would Google that business or look up their social media presence. So it's important that on our social media we give people a sense of what are our events like. what can someone expect if they sign up to come to one of our events? So it is definitely a balance of both face to face and still having this kind of digital persona for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then saying that, you just gave me an idea of another way that we might be able to provide resources through the division, is to connect people back to, like, here's these awesome, incredible networking events and organizations that are doing this work to connect creative community, because I don't have capacity to do it. I'm also a government agency, so I can't make it as fun as like you all do. And you all put on these amazing events that, are in one place, but they're also around Santa Fe. And it takes the creative organizations to bring creatives together. Like, we can come in on the back end with resources and helping build the infrastructure and stuff, but it's like it's there's so many amazing places that people can connect to, and so many cool things going on that, I think you just get um, confirmed that we have a really huge opportunity to, like, push that information out, to be like, go here, connect, grow, thrive. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I guess, based on our conversation talking about collaboration and creativity and what it means for creative economy work, if there's like one thing that you would want folks to walk away with after like a short talk like we did today, either inspired action or just, food for thought, what would that one thing be?
Um, one thing is hard.
You
One
could do
thing
a
to
few
land on
things.
is hard. I would say that I say two things. I would say one, you're not alone. Uh, just as we've talked about today, and you were just mentioning, like there's a wealth of creativity across New Mexico here, and in Santa Fe and Albuquerque is now, all these places are kind of rising up to this, and there's a wealth of creative uh, um, thinking and action. And I know that there are plenty of people out there that want to support and collaborate. So, you're not alone. I think secondly is that community is built, not found. That's the one thing that I've learned from this process is, kind of I mentioned before, like don't wait for the perfect moment or the perfect partner. Like start with where you are and what you have, say yes, and just start. I think those are probably the kind of two two things I would say.
Yeah, those are beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Tracy. I guess the last thing I have for you is there any upcoming projects or opportunities, or what's going on with Creative Mornings Santa Fe that you'd like to share with us that can support local creatives?
Sure, yeah. I mean, always happy to plug Creative Mornings. We here in Santa Fe, we meet the third Friday of the month from 8:30 to 10. It's always free. We do ask that you RSVP because we serve food and coffee, and we want to make sure we have enough for everybody. This month, June, our event is at CCA, Center for Contemporary Arts, and our speaker is Bud Wizzo Weeks, who is a tattoo artist and also a podcast host on the topic of Star Wars. Our theme this month, one thing that's interesting about Creative Mornings is uh, each month, all the chapters around the world, we all celebrate the same theme. So this May, our theme was revival. In June, our theme is punk. And so Bud is going to be talking about kind of creative nonconformity as it relates to the idea of rebellion and how that factors into tattoos and Star Wars. So it'll be super interesting. But we're also
Awesome.
a couple of our volunteers. We're all volunteer run, by the way. This is, nobody's a paid performer. This it runs all on the engine of generosity of volunteers and partnerships. But a couple of our volunteers, who I think are reviving the Albuquerque chapter as well. So that's super exciting for Albuquerque, and we're here to support them as well.
Awesome. Yeah, no, super exciting. And I mean, the talk for June sounds great. And I'm a big Star Wars fan, because previous to this,
Yeah.
I'm a still Jedi at heart, always will be. But, huge work going on there. So that's very exciting. But thank you, Tracy, for being with us today. I'll open it up to the chat if any of our our attendee has any questions. We'd be happy to take those. And if not, thanks for connecting with us, and we'll have this up, probably put into Reel, social media, etc.
It
Great.
feels so
Yeah.
weird being the only attendee. But I
It's
don't have
awesome.
any questions. I just appreciate the fact that Creative Mornings is restarted because I used to attend pre-COVID here in Albuquerque, and it's just such a different event, right? You connect with people. It's not about trying to sell something, and it's just about connection, and I love that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for
Yeah,
being here, Sonia, and hanging out with us. We appreciate it.
Sure.
yeah, definitely. We'd love to see you at the next event or maybe in Albuquerque.
Oh yeah, I'll try to make the one in Santa Fe. That'd be awesome.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for your time and happy Friday.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. All right. Have a great weekend.
You
Bye,
too.
guys.